Hello everyone, welcome back to another video in the car cave. Now, all good things must come to an end. That is a pretty common saying, and unfortunately that is also the case for the Audi R8 lineup. Now, before we get into that, I want to get through all of the nitty-gritties and the specs, and for that I have this wonderful comprehensive spec sheet. So the car that I'm showing right now is a 2022 Audi R8, but the specs are pretty much the same for the 23. It has a 5.2 liter naturally aspirated V10. It has two different trim options, as well as spider versions of both of those trim options, so technically four. But you can do rear wheel drive or you can do the Quattro all-wheel drive. And there's more of a difference than just the powertrain, which I'll get to later on. For the sake of this video, all the specs I'm going to give you are for the rear wheel drive, but I will flash up a little comparison chart on the screen to show you the difference between rear wheel drive and all-wheel drive. Anyway. Horsepower is 562 brake horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. And again, as I said, it drives either the rear wheels or all four wheels. 0 to 60 is done in 3.6 seconds via a 7-speed double-clutch automatic gearbox. Car weighs in at just under 3,600 pounds, so it's 3,594. And fuel economy, 14 in the city, 23 in the highway, and it has a starting MSRP of $158,600. Now, I'll go ahead and show up the difference between the rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. Now, if you are in the market for an R8, some of the other cars that you might be looking at could include the 911 GT3, Aston Martin Vantage, or the new Maserati MC20, which I was pretty surprised that the price was so close to the R8. If you're interested in seeing videos of any of those cars, let me know and I'll try to get my hands on one. Now, as far as the actual car itself, I'll start with the interior, move to the exterior, and then talk a little bit about the comparison between the all-wheel drive and the rear-wheel drive, what you get for that extra money besides just the powertrain. Now, interior build quality is as you would expect for a supercar. All of the leather feels nice and tight. There are plenty of other fancy materials to justify the price tag. The driving position is comfortable, and the orientation of all the controls are such that it kind of favors the driver. So it's not that you can't access them as the passenger, it's that they're all sort of tilted towards the driver, which kind of gives you an idea of what they intended for this car. The interior storage space is not amazing, but then again, it never really is for cars of this nature. You get a little cubby in the front of the center console, which also has a wireless charging pad for your phone. The cup holders are concealed inside where the center compartment storage would otherwise be. And if you check just behind that center compartment, you'll find a CD player integrated into the car as well. So that kind of gives you an idea of the target audience for the R8. Now, the steering wheel is littered with buttons. You control everything from the different displays that you have on your dashboard, your different driving modes, performance characteristics, the exhaust note that the car will be emanating. You also have your stop-start feature, your phone, radio, navigation. All of that gets controlled through your steering wheel, and it's all displayed on this little dashboard. Instead of having a screen in the center console, it's all visible to pretty much exclusively the driver. So there are quite a lot of features to distract you from driving, and that's something that I wish was a little bit different. Now, another annoying thing about the R8 that I do have to mention, it does have a soft limiter. I think it keeps it around 3,000 RPMs, so you don't really get to rev it out and hear that V10 screaming if you're not doing speeds that are probably not legal. Now, before I get into details about the exterior, I want to talk about some of the differences on the interior between the rear-wheel drive and the all-wheel drive. Now, the Quattro, being the more expensive car, gets a little bit more as standard. You get Alcantara headliner instead of fabric. You get this extended leather package, which wraps your armrests in the doors, door pull handles, and the trim on the center console in leather. You have illuminated carbon fiber door sills, and the carbon Sigma inlays in the center console are also standard in the Quattro. Now, the exterior design of this car has aged really well, in my opinion. It has a very modern touch. It doesn't look dated, but it still pays homage to the original Audi R8. So the original R8 was debuted in 2006, hit the sales floor the following year in 2007, and at the time it had a 4.2 liter naturally aspirated mid-engine, still V8. And it had a manual transmission, and I believe it was a single clutch automatic at the time. Now, in 2009, just 2 years later, it adopted the 5.2 liter V10 from the Lamborghini Gallardo. I believe it was the LP560 at that time. Now, in actuality, that engine in the Lamborghini was borrowed from Audi's S6 and S8 to begin with, so it was always an Audi engine. They just borrowed it from Lamborghini and put it back into the R8. And the rest is history. Since that time, the R8 has always shared technology with the Lamborghini's V10 at the time. So the Gallardo when the Gallardo came out, and then the Huracan when the Huracan came out. So in a way, it's always been the more mature, more executive, slightly heavier, slightly slower, but always much less expensive than its Italian cousin. Now, one thing I will say, I have driven the R8 several times, and I've driven a couple of Huracans as well. I will say the R8 is much easier to drive. Not in the sense that the Huracan is a difficult car to drive, it's just that the R8 is slightly higher off the ground, so it's a little bit easier to maneuver. You don't clench up quite as much as a Lamborghini. And then also when you're driving a Lamborghini, it's such a big event anywhere that you go. And with the R8, you can be a little bit more understated. And that's something that I personally appreciate about the R8. It has all of that crazy performance of the Huracan, albeit slightly slower, but without all of the fuss of the Italian design. Now, as I said, it does pay homage to the original R8, particularly in those nice contrast colored side blades. Now, I know that you can get those to match the rest of the body color if you'd like, but I personally wouldn't, because that's kind of what makes the R8 so iconic. Now, some of the differences on the exterior between the Quattro and the rear-wheel drive include the chrome tips are standard on rear-wheel drive, where the Quattro gets black exhaust tips. The front lip spoiler and rocker inlays are gloss black for the rear-wheel drive and titanium for the Quattro. And in the rear-wheel drive, you have an electronically articulating rear spoiler, whereas in the Quattro, it's a fixed wing made of carbon fiber. Now, I do want to make sure to say a big thank you to Exclusive Cars here in Riverside, California for loaning me this R8 to film for this video. They have a crazy variety of super expensive and exotic cars for you to check out. So if you are in the market for something of this nature, definitely check them out. I'll leave a link to their website below for you to see some of their inventory. Now, unfortunately, this is the last year of the Audi R8. 2023 marks the ending of an era. The R8 has been out for 15 years and has really changed the perception of Audi as a brand. Before the R8, they didn't really have any kind of a supercar presence, and I don't know if they will moving forward as they pursue an electrified future with cars like the Audi e-tron GT. Albeit they're great cars, but they're just not an Audi R8. Now, Audi is giving it a proper send-off with a limited production 333 worldwide units of an Audi R8 GT. If you're interested in more about that, I can go ahead and do a video. Just let me know in the comments below. I'm very sad to see the R8 going away. Despite the performance characteristics of these electric cars, you really just can't replace that amazing, gurgling, popping satisfaction of driving a naturally aspirated V10, V12, whatever. It's something that you really love and you just can't explain why. It keeps that child inside of you alive just a little bit longer as life tries to suck away all of the happiness that you used to have. Now, on that very happy note, that's all I have on the R8. Thank you so much for watching. Please leave me a comment below about what you thought about the video and what cars you'd like to see in the future. Leave a like if you could, subscribe if you like, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.